It seems that a lot of reviews about something is shaped from the initial experiences, the first impression in a lot of ways. This certainly includes games. It may be a sequel that needs to live up to the prior title's presentation. Or perhaps you didn't play the original game. The first game you played was the one that was very different than its predecessors, but you prefer it. It's no surprise, if you like something and it changes, you may be less inclined to enjoy that change. Fallout is no different. Your first Fallout may impact how you view the series. Of course, no one is truly beholden to those preconceived notions. Breath of the Wild being a massive departure from the series and is a bigger success than any of the prior games is proof of such. So, I will discuss my first Fallout and how I view some of the elements in the series. Not a lot, not even close to everything, but some things. This is, overall, going to be a short video, but one that leads into a bit of community engagement. So, my first Fallout, like a lot of people, was Fallout 3. It was a revolutionary title to me when I first played the game. I loved the smash-up environment, makeshift homes, and what felt like at the time, strong moral ambiguity since, as far as games go, the only one I could compare it to was Fable. I played New Vegas and I loved it too, but it didn't click with me the same way as Fallout 3 clicked. The wasteland was a boring desert, it felt too civilized. Still, I liked it well enough. The gameplay was essentially the same, but a bit more refined, and the three-way war system was pretty great. My experiences with classic Fallout were a bit more iffy. As you may know, I played through the original games several times, even made a video about how to play the first game. But my initial attempts didn't go well, made me hate the first two games. Eventually, I played through them, and started to sour a bit on the East Coast games. Over the years, I wound up accepting all styles into this settled pool. This may sound familiar overall. I go into a lot more detail in a different video about my Fallout journey, but I felt like reiterating and giving a summary was important to set up the following: my views on the series. Now, I want to say that while your first game may have the strongest shape of review, it can be reshaped over time, from different experiences with newer titles, other fan opinions, and just getting older and thinking about different subjects as you age. All are true for me. I'm not going to talk about my favorite game, but I will talk about some of my preferences. Gameplay-wise, I prefer the first-person control over the isometric views of the original games. That most likely stems from Fallout 3 being my first Fallout title. It's what stuck with me. I also think the smashed-up environments do look cool, but I feel like the focus on that neat-looking stuff does limit believability of the world overall. Obviously, that last bit does come in contrast with Fallout 3's design philosophy. Remember, while the first game may shape your views, it's not impossible for other factors to remold them. With that in mind, I generally prefer the West Coast lore compared to the East Coast lore. I feel it's more structured and felt like it had a long-term plan, which it certainly did not. Read enough of the Fallout Bible and you know a lot of this stuff is full of tossing around ideas. And there's a certain level of iffiness with some of those ideas, particularly in Fallout 2. However, when it comes to the feelings of power armor, I prefer what 4 presents, but ultimately dislike how easy the suits are to obtain, and how it's more like a mech suit than actual armor. I prefer the bulk of 4 and 76 over the scrawniness of 3 and New Vegas's, but I don't favor the robot hands and feet. You don't get that mech feeling when you play 1 and 2. But to be fair, the isometric sprites do leave a lot to the imagination. I prefer Fallout 3 introducing a real plasma rifle to the game, and having New Vegas retcon 1's plasma rifle into being the plasma caster. The caster doesn't really look like a rifle to begin with. Also, the plasma caster is ultimately my favorite weapon in the series. I prefer the original combat armor in 1 and 2 from a design standpoint. I don't care much for 3 and New Vegas's, unless you count the reinforced variant, which is supposed to be the original one. 4's is okay, somewhat. I prefer the super mutants of the West Coast, and dislike the various pools of East Coast super mutants. I go into that pretty heavily in this video. And while I prefer the designs of Deathclaws in Fallout 4, I find damage and behavior-wise, 3 and New Vegas's are overall better. And as much as people talk them up, the ones in the original games are kind of weak. These were just some generalized thoughts, and everyone has their own. I didn't cover everything, obviously. But what about you? What are your thoughts? Which gets into this. Everyone loves when I present surveys. So I want to know your first game and what are your opinions about specific things now. It's kind of like my first survey. But I imagine things have changed, if only slightly, over the years. And be clear, when I get the results, I plan to go over them in a future video. A very special thanks to my channel members, especially the Members Thrice Over members like That Crazy Game Developer and Denny McPhee. If you wish to support me and join as well, I'd be more than happy. Otherwise, like, share, subscribe, all that typical YouTube stuff. Thank you. Have a good one.